Okay, alright.
Hello and welcome back to the Make Lemonade podcast, a show brought to you by Lemon Squeezy, as we hope to inspire you to make money from your own lemonade stand. I'm one of your co-hosts, James, and I'm back here with JR Farr, co-founder and CEO of Lemon Squeezy. Today, JR, we are joined by a guest, Sara Loretta, who's the 10th US certified Notion consultant and founder of Systems, an operations agency for agencies and small startups. She previously owned a design studio and spent nearly a decade before that working in the non-profit sector, working in business development. Sara, welcome to the pod. How are you doing?
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me. This is so exciting. I feel like milestone.
We just chatted before. How did you come across Lemon Squeezy? I'm always interested for those that are actually using it, how they found it.
So I am a really active person on Product Hunt and Google, but I actually think I found JR first. He was like coming up at my feed on Twitter, and I was still on Gumroad, we shall not be named, and was just like not happy with it. And so I think it was just like a nice kind of worlds colliding that while I was looking for something else, Lemon Squeezy had like barely just launched. Like y'all were so new. And I was like, man, this is so pretty. It's clean. I hated Gumroad's rebrand. And so I was like viciously trying to get away from that platform. And it was before the mass exodus. And so for me, it was honestly like a no-brainer. I love working with tools that are up and coming when they have a lot of potential and they want to build off of their user base. And so I think I found you guys on like a Friday, and I had fully moved over to Lemon Squeezy by like Tuesday. Because it was just a no-brainer for me to be on a platform that actually supported what I was doing. And I think the other thing that you guys do really well, and I don't know if this is going to make sense, but maybe for some creators it might, but I definitely feel like platforms play favorites with creators, and they very distinctively have their like core group. And that was something that I've really always appreciated about Lemon Squeezy, is that everybody matters, no matter how big or small of a creator you are. And you guys aren't using like that core base to market, which I think is very sexy from somebody who I call myself kind of like the millennial, so to speak, of creators, right? Like you have that original group of like the Amy Porterfields and the Jay Klauses. I'm kind of in that middle. And then you have like people coming up behind me. And I feel like my group's always kind of forgotten and not featured. and so being on platforms that I matter on is really, really important to me.
So, Sara, you referred to yourself as the queen of pivots before we started recording. And this is illustrated by the fact you've gone from biz dev and compliance from non-profits to a design studio to now doing your Notion and system stuff. So talk to me about that journey for you.
Yeah. Also, I wrote in the music industry for a very, very long time. So yeah, I've had several careers over the last 12, 13 years. So I actually got started doing a program called AmeriCorps, which is here in the US, and it's a very low-level government program. You get money for college, you basically get paid nothing. But I couldn't afford school, so I was like, okay, I'm going to go do this program. And that's what brought me to Austin. I taught STEM K through 5. I ran robotics for Central Texas. I was doing summer camps and living the dream. And the nonprofit that I did AmeriCorps through basically kept me on full-time after as a data assistant. And I'm like, I've never had a real job before. I don't know what this means. I actually distinctly remember getting yelled at for putting an exclamation point in an email. So my professional development is very minimal and very abrasive. And so through that, like I was going to college, I went to Texas State. And my whole focus was museum studies. Like I wanted to work at the Smithsonian and talk about culture and how middle class is shaped through technology. And that was literally what I wanted to be when I grew up. And so I spent a lot of time looking at specifically like hip hop and rap, and how rappers are actually historians for inner city. And, you know, the mainstream media does not normally cover innovation and society within lower class areas. And so I had started writing, and I was doing this blog and blah, blah, blah. And Shay Serrano, if you guys know who he is, he wrote for The Ringer. He's got a couple best-selling books. He ended up retweeting my college thesis, and that got picked up by Charlemagne the God and a couple of outlets. So I was like doing that while like doing data for nonprofits on the side. Like it was a very strange start to my career. And then I built my first database with SQL. The nonprofit I worked at, we were almost 30 years old and solely operating on paper. And I'm like, I can't. Like, we were owing tens of thousands of dollars to the city and state because reporting was wrong. And so I spent months building out digital databases and like literally changing every compliance process that this nonprofit had ever had. And then, this is really important, it all comes together, I promise y'all. We went through a huge reorg. We lost our largest grant and we went from a team of 65 to a team of 18 in less than 6 months. And our executive director looked at me. I was the youngest on our team by about a 6 to 7 year gap. They looked at me in a meeting once and said, "You're young, you understand social media, have our communications department." And I'm like, what? I don't know what this means, but okay. And so I was literally thrown in to learn websites and social media and PR. I was writing literally like just the most insane things that I was very not qualified to do. And I started getting into video and telling stories about women joining construction and what the Austin space was looking like. And then a bunch of nonprofits around us was like, we don't have you on our team. Like, what you're doing is incredible. And I couldn't find another job at the time. And I hated my boss. I was bullied tremendously in my job. And so I just started freelancing with all of our partners. No one said I couldn't, right? Like, I guess asked for permission. In my first 6 months of freelancing, I landed 40 clients and I went full time the day before my 26th birthday. So I've been freelancing for 6 years now. And so at the time I was like, cool, like I'm just going to do media and websites. Like, I like this stuff. I'm creative. And so I started my design studio called 99 in St. Clair. It was based off of a Bone Thugs song. If y'all are hip hop heads, it's also the neighborhood I grew up in, Cleveland, and was doing that and working with brands around the world. I think I worked with like 13 countries. But then every client I worked with, about 85% were shutting their doors within a year of working with me. And I'm like, man, am I the problem? Like, what am I doing? Like, why are people like shutting their doors after we've done these huge rebrands? And what I started to recognize was that my clients thought that logos were going to fix their operational issues and were going to make them a ton of money. And so I started kind of having business development conversations with these nonprofits and these smaller brands I was working with, and I was setting their pricing and figuring out their operations while also like building their website. And I just happened to then find Notion on a Google search because I was using Trello and my neurodivergent brain just did not work for me. It was so siloed, and happened to make a video. I was the first designer to really showcase online that I was using Notion to run my studio. And maybe like 2 months later, Notion came to me and they're like, hey, we have this, consultant program. You should go through it. And I'm like, what do I have to lose? I was also getting sued at the time and I was like done with design, to be honest. I was like, I'm over this. And so I took the certification program. I became the 10th in the US. And currently I think there's 56 of us worldwide that are certified by Notion. And so I shut my entire design studio down. I said, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. Went full time doing operations and Notion consulting about 2 years ago. So yeah, that's been my trajectory. And I now work with agencies and startups and build out literally everything. I always like to say I burn their businesses down and we rise from the ashes,
That's an awesome story. Does it scare you at all when you're making these changes, when you went fully freelance and then shutting your design studio down? What gives you the courage to just make these big decisions?
Yeah. Oh, I wish I had the right answer that I'm like, oh, I'm so insightful or, whatever. Like, I've never set a goal in my life. I don't know how to set goals. My brain doesn't compute OKRs and KPIs. Like, I just do things. Like, I'm really good at looking at data in real time and just going with it. I don't need to sit here and mull over it and hope that like things are going to change or, if something's not working, cut it. Like, that's just who I am. But I think also a piece of that, and I've had this question a few times and I'm always like, do I talk about it? But if you know me, if you've ever like followed me in any sense, I'm pretty open about the fact that I was a runaway at 15 and I put my dad in prison at 17. And so I think for me, like, I have nothing else to lose. Like, I hit my lowest point in like the most vital years of development. And so for me, like, nothing's a big deal. Like, I don't make a big deal out of anything, which I think even like accomplishments, I'm like, oh yeah, I did that. Great. And next thing, like, let's go. I don't harp on stuff. And I think that that's what makes pivoting so easy for me, because at the end of the day, like, there are very few decisions in your life that are permanent, right? Murder's pretty permanent. Bankruptcy could be permanent, but you could bounce back from that, right? Like, there's very few things in life that if you make a decision, you can't go back to. I also live in the tech hub of the United States. Like, I could go get a job tomorrow if I wanted to, if all fails, right? Like, I don't know. I just do shit and I have a good time. And I think that's what a lot of people too miss in their freelancing and entrepreneurship journey, is like the actual fun of doing things and exploring, right? Like, you are not who you were 5 years ago. And so if you're harping on something that's dead, quit beating the horse and like move on. Like, no one's going to judge you, clearly.
I'm fully on board with that. But how does it work sort of financially for you? Are you always sort of setting yourself up with some savings, so when you do make that switch to the new thing, you've got enough in the bank? Or that time where you got 40 clients before you left?
Yeah. It's so wild because like I look at that time and I'm like, oh, I was charging like $15 an hour, because that's like what I made in my day. I made, oh my God, the nonprofit I worked at, my check I took home every month was $2,800 after taxes. That's how much I made. So for me, I was like, oh, anything is extra. Like anything I will take. And so my first whole year freelancing, I was like, I just need to make every month what I made in my day job and I'm fine. I'm going to be fine. Right. And so to answer your question though, I think one thing that I don't share as much is that there is always an overlap before I publicly pivot. So like with Notion, I had made that Notion video in 2020, and which is weird, it still lands me clients to this day. It's very strange. But I had a woman from Ireland reach out to me about 7 or 8 times and be like, please build my Notion account for me. And I was like, girl, I make logos. Like, I don't know. And I ended up charging her $500 for her entire build. And I said, look, like if you're asking for this, chances are other people are too. Let me turn this into templates, because the template gallery was kind of like creating in Notion was like, like eSlow had not launched yet. That's like where in the timeline we are. And so I'm like, you know what? Let me just turn this in. I've made close to like 100K on that template bundle over the last 4.5 years. So like for me, like I take little risks while I'm doing the thing that people know me for. And then as it gains momentum, then I'm like, cool, this is going to work. And then I publicly pivot. So like with Notion Consulting too, like I made that template first. And then there was a like design production studio called Curio. They're based in the Bay. They reached out to me and they were my first Notion build that I had done for a company. And after that, I was like, oh, this is really fun. Because I think in design, art is very subjective, and it's very hard if people are not loving it. It is very hard to like get people on board. Whereas with data and workspaces and products, it is a black and white. You're either going to sink or you're going to swim, and that's it. And I thrive on black and white, hard information, and so it was kind of like a no-brainer to switch. But now, like, I'm in a place where I just don't really care. Like if it doesn't serve me, I'm not holding on to it. And so I just shut down all of my freelancer education, shut down my content subscription, because I'd recognized like I had outgrown it. And so why am I going to keep doing stuff that I'm not even learning from? And people were angry, but at the end of the day, like you're not even paying for it. You're like, you have opinions, but you weren't a member. You are not supporting my business in any way. Like I don't care about people's opinions. I really don't. And I think that's what makes it easier to do.
Well, good for you for, and it's a great answer, and good for you for being so, just knowing what works for your business, looking at the data and making a change if you want to make a change. I think a lot of people end up sticking with something for quite a long time when they're not either enjoying it or it's not going as well as they could, when there could be something else that works a little better.
I think a lot of it actually is that entrepreneurship, it's like, one is like, you talk about Sara, like not being afraid to pivot. I think it requires like some thick skin and also being a little naive. Like I can do this. If he can do it, I can do it. But then there's also like, I think people get so romantic about their idea or their company that they can't move. And so, you kind of have to just balance those two things as you're doing it. But
100%. I think it's so fascinating that people take the leap to become entrepreneurs or freelancers, whatever words you want to use, solopreneurs, whatever, right? And then all of a sudden, like, their confidence to like rip band-aids are gone. It's like, oh, I made the leap one time, I'm good, I'm safe, right? And it's like, no, like you should be giving yourself professional development. And one thing I do that I think is important to talk about is after every single client, I do what's called a client review. I look at what skills did I learn? What red flags did the client have? What green flags? Is this a new client? Did I charge what I was supposed to? And that has really shaped where my business is headed to. And I think more people should sit down and actually look at the projects once they're done and or offers, right? Because especially like looking at digital products, like you launch a course or you launch a product, like you need to be actually collecting and looking at the feedback, not just going, oh, I sold 50 grand, I'm so happy. Okay, well, you could have sold 50 grand, but people hated it. And that's, I think, the biggest piece here too, is it's not just personal feelings, but it's data.
Oh, absolutely.
So.
Okay, so you've made a few points about obviously your background, and then right now you're really heavy in Notion. I think for me, just selfishly, I want to understand Notion a little better and how the ecosystem works. Like you made a comment like this lady from Ireland pinged me 7 times to build her Notion account. What does that even mean? Like, I know there's templates, but what do those mean? And then you're like
a certified consultant. Though there's 60 in the world, and when I was certified, I was the 10th in the US. So there's, I think, like 12 of us in the US that are certified.
So just break down, I guess, just Notion as like that ecosystem.
So I think very clearly Notion can be used for a lot of different things, which is what causes overwhelm for most people. So Notion actually got started as like a college note-taking kind of platform. That's what it originally was. And then a lot of us kind of found it because I like to explain Notion as kind of open source, or open box software. I think that's a greater way to explain it. So when we look at project management tools, you have ClickUp, Asana, Monday, right? Those are just some of the top differentiations. And those engineers at that team said, this is the intended workflow that every single user is going to go through. You guys do it at Lemon Squeezy, right? You click here to do this. This is the screen for this, right? But in Notion, what they did differently is they are considered open box. So they give you the tools and you use the tools how you see fit. So every single page, every database, every interaction that you have with the platform is vastly different from person to person. Even thinking about consultants, we all build drastically different. Some people rely on the para method from Tiago Forte. Some people rely on the bulletproof method. There's a couple different other like major ways to collect data. I take a step back and I don't do any bells and whistles. I don't build Notion to be aesthetically pleasing. I focus more on the data and getting to the data quickly and making it as less overwhelming as possible. So then, yes, you have templates. There are creators that, create, I have a template for South by. So great example. I have a template in Lemon Squeezy for sale that helps you like track all of the events you're going to at South by Southwest and collect your RSVPs and, kind of go through the motions of remembering who you met and where. So that's a template. That's a one-off use case, right? But then you also can build your own templates. So think like meeting notes, right? If you and your team every meeting want to be able to look at what tasks are due that week, what's on people's agendas, you can build your own template to use within your workspace. So it's kind of infinite just how Notion works. And I think I personally, tell everybody it's okay that Notion is not for you. I really think that you have to have kind of a builder mindset and be willing to play with the blocks, so to speak, when it's necessary and if you want to explore it. Notion is never a one and done product. I think that's also a piece of it that you guys know too from being a newer product is like, you have to be open to things launching and changing because the roadmap is consistently evolving.
So does being a Notion consultant, do they feed you clients from the Notion ecosystem? Okay.
Yes and no. So this is a newer thing we've all been kind of building for the last 9 months or so. So Notion's consultant program was actually built by a power user. So William Nutt was kind of the champion of creating this program of certified consultants. And it wasn't until last year that Notion as a company decided these people, and I say this with love, I'm not a paid employee of Notion. I can say whatever I want. they did not champion us whatsoever until about a year ago when someone came into their team and saw our value. And so we're finally getting things and building relationships. And one of those things was a directory. So you can actually go onto Notion's website, and if you need help or support, there's actually a button that says hire a consultant, and it's everybody that's in the directory. And you can either connect with us directly, or you can just submit a project like, oh, I want, to optimize my workspace and build automations. And it basically will pair you with 2 consultants that are quote unquote like the best fit. And then it's like a race to whoever wins it, basically. But most of the projects that go through there are like $1,000. Like I don't really lean on that too much. My major referral platforms are YouTube and Twitter. And LinkedIn's like kind of starting, which is interesting because I give no energy to LinkedIn, but it seems to be working in some capacity.
I think LinkedIn's like a sleeping giant that there are some people that can build huge business on it, but with us, and I'd probably say all 3 of us in our Twitter sphere, and we love Twitter and we love what you can do, are ignoring the fact that there's this sleeping giant here of LinkedIn that people are building big businesses off, especially in the world where you're helping people with Notion and their systems, and people who are on LinkedIn are specifically looking for that stuff. Now, I'm interested, Sarah, about this certified consultant program, because you see a lot of the other softwares have this. HubSpot, Salesforce, anything that you can create the software to a point of complexity where you need a consultant to come in and help you with it. How hard was it for you to go through the examination process to become certified? And what takes it from someone going from just a regular old user to a certified pro user like yourself?
So I was the last consultant to be certified before Notion launched the Essentials badge. And I actually they had me take Essentials, but also go through the old process too, which was, so I basically like double certified, if that makes sense in a way, because they were testing out this thing. So now, you can get these badges where it like proves, the basics of Notion, you understand sharing and, different things. And then you have to get all of those before you qualify to then apply, I guess, to become a certified consultant. So that was not that difficult. I will say though, in my sense, I had never done any kind of enterprise build whatsoever. And the majority of the Essentials questionnaire for me was enterprise questions. And I actually failed it the first time around. I was off by like 3 questions. I think I failed it. And so, because it's all randomized, But then the actual build, the practicum, was not hard. They just give you instructions and they're like, hey, read these and build it. And that was fine. As long as you hit like the features they wanted in there, you were good. I also think I set myself up for success because I hear from a lot of consultants like, oh, I have this badge, but I'm not landing clients. Like people are having a really hard time, which is interesting because there's 40 million Notion users, right? Like it's a massive entity. But what I did is when I had done that template bundle that I was selling, I basically had set myself up because I was selling it for $67. That's all I sold it for. And then I had a sales funnel that basically said after 5 days, hey, if this is too hard for you, here's a $1,500 invoice and I'll go in and customize it. So that was how I was retaining clients. And I think I had over 600 people download that template bundle. And I think it was like a 20% conversion on one-on-one clients. And then I just started showcasing those and like people just started finding me. But I definitely think you should, if you are considering becoming a consultant, you need to have some baseline first. You can't just like wake up one day and be like, oh yeah, this sounds nice. Like I'm going to go after this. Like part of the application, I had to showcase like social proof that I had been like teaching people about Notion socially, answering questions like on Reddit or whatever, helping people. And so you really have to be in the community before I think you attack it.
So it sounds like there's the template side. I want to understand the template side and why haven't you gone more into that? You've proven that you've built something that people want. You've made 100K off of it. I know it's been over like 4.5 years, but is that just something that just doesn't pique your interest or?
Yeah. So I think the other thing to note about that template bundle is that I never did any kind of marketing. So after I built it for that girl, I gave it to 10 designers for free. And that was purely word of mouth after. I never once made any kind of content about this platform. I think the thing is, I say this with love. I say this with so much love because I have so much respect for people who are creators and growth hackers. I don't want to play the growth hack game. I just don't. There's no money in it unless you really hit a lick and you hit a stride. And I mean, I'm signing 30, 40, 50K contracts at this point for these projects. So a $17 template does not matter to me in the least.
So you feel like you're in more control, right?
Yeah, 100%. And it's just like, I also look at it, listen, like how many more freaking CRM templates do we need? How many more like but I do build on my channel. Like I just released a big financial tracker, but what I do when I release a template is it's very directly tied to either where I'm at in my business or like something that was really sexy with a client. And I'm like, ooh, other people would like this. So I just launched this big financial tracker. And it was literally because my entire business is run on autopilot in FreshBooks. I have zero idea what my expenses are, what I'm spending. Like it's just all auto running. And so I took a step back and was like, I need to start paying more attention to where my income and expenses are and why I'm paying for 20 softwares and I don't need them. So I built this thing to basically manual out that process in my business. And people have really seemed to love it. But that's how I do it. And then I also, people who can't afford to work with me, I invite them onto my live stream on YouTube and I basically build for them. And then if it's useful, we release it and then we just split affiliate.
So this makes a lot of sense. You've got a nice flywheel going here because where you don't necessarily want to play the template game solely, where you see a lot of creators have found that quite lucrative, you're at a good place with your agency business where it seems like you like doing that work, you're confident, you're an expert in it, and you can still do the YouTube stuff, which can cater for that market of people that do want the templates and do want to learn and want to workshop with you. But that flywheel feeds into your agency stuff that is more lucrative, you have more control over, you enjoy, which feeds into more content you can make from the YouTube, and it goes around like that.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I think everybody has their own path, and there's nothing wrong with creating templates. But I think the other thing too is I don't just do Notion, right? Like I come in really as a fractional COO and like people find me for Notion and then we end up doing a ClickUp build because ClickUp makes more sense for their team. And so for me, like, it's a nice little buzzword, but if Notion shuts down tomorrow and all you've built is a Notion template business, you have nothing. And I think that's something that I am very mindful, even in pivoting, is if a platform shuts down or you decide, oh, hey, they're going to charge me 12% of every sale I have, what are you going to do? Right?
Walk me through. So one of the things that we saw that looks relatively new is this Productized AF template, which is more than Notion. It's Zapier templates, it's feedback forms. It's kind of what you're saying. There's more to it than just Notion. So is this like a little bit of a test here to see if this is resonating? Is this working for you?
Yeah. So Productized as fuck for AF. Sorry. That's literally what it stands for. If y'all are active on Twitter, I'm sure you know that productized services are all the rage right now. Brett from Design Joy makes $1 million plus a year. He's the one who popularized it. I have a productized service, but I've had several people since I launched my productized service, very similar to where my first Notion template bundle was please build this out for me, please. So I've had several clients that I have productized their business for, and I'm kind of at a point where I'm literally copying and pasting every single time. It's nothing new, right? I have all of these templates internally. So all I did was templatize it out and bundle it and throw it on my website. Because if you can't afford me, I mean, my minimum, I charge $7K minimum for one-on-one work. And so if you can't afford that, go buy my little $97 bundle, follow my videos and my guides and do it yourself. Like it's not super difficult. So yeah, so that's been fun to kind of play around with and see. I did a product hunt launch that totally failed, but I also didn't put any kind of energy into it. But I think I think I did 2 little marketing pieces for it. Didn't even email my email list. And I think I've sold 15 of them already. And It's been out maybe a week. So yeah, it's been fun.
Cool.
Sara, how do you become so confident in your delivery of the one-on-one work that you're so happy to charge $7K, but also saying, look, if you want to do it yourself, here it is for $100.
James, have you seen her sign up buttons? It says "Sign me the fuck up." I mean, I think she's clearly confident in what she's doing.
Listen, I like to swear. I went to Catholic school for 8 years, so I am releasing all the built-up tension of my childhood, okay?
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, to answer your question, confidence with one-on-one work, I don't recommend people get sued, but I have had 3 incredibly horrible clients that have made me I'm also known for my asshole boundaries. So very clearly, putting boundaries in my business. I don't take bullshit from anybody. I don't care who you are, how much you're paying me. Like, I am somebody who knows her stuff. I'm not just this little freelancer with no experience. I've literally been doing this almost 15 years, right? Just in different mediums. And so I think the confidence really comes from the fact that people have tried to bring me down, and my, respect for people and my poise and my boundaries really just like help me get over that. I know that's like not the right answer, but like literally you could not do anything else to me. And so all I have is to win. And I show up every day with my clients, like proving like I have nothing to lose. Like I'm here to make your business better, and that's it. I also think too, like Google's your friend. And so I've gotten a lot of confidence from saying yes to projects that I'm very much not qualified for. Somehow people are reaching out to me and it just seems to work, right? Like I'm very resourceful, and I think when you're like, oh, wow, I did that and I probably shouldn't have. And that's like a nice little like, okay, cool, here we are, So, yeah.
What sort of systems do you find yourself building for clients most often? What are most people coming to you for?
So I primarily work with service-based businesses. And I say that in the sense of like, you have an onboarding process, you have a creative delivery, and you usually have an offboarding process. I've also worked with product-based businesses, but they have some form of unity with onboarding and delivery of whatever, right? I help a lot of people launch courses and digital products, but usually it is the entire business suite that we are building. So my method follows very closely to the Google Sprint model. So if you've ever read the book Sprints, 2 guys from Google wrote it. And I read that book and I was like, oh, this is how you do strategy. And once I learned that of how to really dig in deep to the problem, my entire business changed. So what I do is I focus on kind of 3 core elements to everybody's business. So the tech, yes, the systems, the tech, that's whole one piece. Some clients come to me and they're like, our tech spend is astronomical. We want to streamline or whatever. Some people are like, we have no systems. We just kind of copied and pasted what we saw on the internet. And then the key piece is I think where I really shine is culture. So, yes, you can have this really beautiful Notion account, but if there's no expectations internally or externally of how your ecosystem uses it and shows up every day, why did I spend all this time building it? That's really like where I shine, but also like communication and how org charts work. I have a team of 200 I'm working with right now. When they came to me, they were having contractors skip over project managers and go directly to the CEO. Like that's not how it works, And so we spend a lot of time on that. And then I was also an educator. I did K through 5. I also did some adult workforce stuff for the city. And so I bring in education to everything I do. I do lunch and learns. I train recorded videos. I do a lot of like team hand holding once things are built to make sure people are confident. Yeah. And then at the end of the day, like the deliverables, like, yeah, we might build Notion or we might build ClickUp or, we might just clean up your Google Drive. Who knows, right? But most people come to me because they're like, damn, we can't scale, or our team is up and quitting, or, it's chaotic. And so that's really what people are hiring me for, not Notion.
Sara, is this all you, and is it all run through systems? Like, so just from a like maybe nerdy businessy corporate setup, like I'm assuming you have like a business that's all fed through you and you just do all the work, and then do you just like how do you think about your revenue? Do you track it as this is what I did last month type thing, or
Yeah, it's all me. I've tried to hire, that hasn't really worked out. I mean, I've like hired a marketing person here or there, and like I just hired a VA 2 days ago who's going to solely work on my scheduling because things are ramping up, right? Like I live stream on YouTube 3 times a week. I'm on shows like this, then I have my client work, and I have one client I have a standing meeting every day for an hour with, right? Like there's so many moving parts, but I have never found somebody to do the actual work. And so like, I'm happy. It's me. Like, I'm rocking and rolling. I don't feel burnt out. I think the other thing is like, I have so much templatized that like, I literally spend more time in the strategy, and then like the execution takes me like 4 days. Like, it's not that big of an up. In terms of revenue, to answer your question, I usually have like very large periods of onboarding, and then I have large periods of execution. So for instance, in January, I onboarded 12 clients. I hit my first 50K month ever in my business, which was wild.
Oh,
Nice.
yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. And 36K of it was paid out in full to me. And then the rest is like a little bit of a payment plan. So for me, like, I just ride the wave and I'm like, cool, I'm booked out. I know that I can take like a little tiny project here or there, but I'm not stressed. And I'm really good at keeping people engaged and preparing to work with me if I'm not available, or I just refer them to another consultant that I know and love and trust, you know.
Do you have any recurring, or is it all just, this is a project, I do it, c'est la vie, like, or do you have, returning customers?
Yeah, so I think what's really interesting, because my business is kind of pivoting in this way, which I didn't ask for, and I'm not mad at it. I am now starting with one company, and they seem to either be launching a holdings company or they already have one. And so we finish with one company and then they're shifting me to another one. So when we think about retainer, technically, yes, like I'm just starting over in a different capacity, but I don't really do retainer in the traditional sense. Like, if you need me and you come back, cool. But my whole thing is like, if you can't afford to have a me on your team at a high COO level, who are we going to train to make sure that you're still successful until you're ready to have that budget? So I really don't rely on retainer at all for anybody. And most of my contracts are 90 days to 6 months. So, a project that could have maybe taken you a month, with everything else that's included, I guess you could consider it like a nice retainer in that way.
What does the future look like for you, Sarah, with the business? Are you going to just like continue scaling it, just being you? Sort of goes back to the hiring thing. You've sort of tried hiring and it's not quite worked. Are you infinitely scalable, or where does it go?
Yeah, I don't know, to be honest. I mean, I just hired a YouTube strategist, and I'm starting to really see some growth on my channel, and I'm really leaning into what that could look like for the future for me.
That's cool.
Yeah, I want to start creating content that's more tech agnostic. I'm like, yeah, I'm known for Notion, that's great, but like, I also am the first certified Paperform expert, like first in the world. And like, I make Paperform content. I love Paperform, so I'm looking at ways that looks like with brand deals and partnerships. But I'm finally, I will say this with my whole chest, I am finally in a place that I love my clients. And I think that not enough people are honest about that either. Like, yeah, you could love design or love doing Notion, but your clients probably make you miserable, and you're afraid to admit that. And I saw a business therapist for about 7 months last year that really helped me love what I do again and really find clients that I actually am excited to get out of bed for every day outside of the invoice, right?
Yeah.
Because money is nice, but you actually have to like the work. And so I'm just honestly, for the first time in 6 years, I'm riding the client wave. And I know that it is the stark opposite of what everybody's preaching online, but I really like doing the work, and I like showing up as an expert and a leader and, and supporting people. And so whatever that looks like in 5 years, who knows? But like personally, I'm writing a fiction novel. So, that'd be nice to finally get published. And,
that's cool.
Maybe if we could pitch Amazon or something, so I don't know.
Are you regimented with your time, like your day to day and your weeks?
Kind of. It's fallen off a little bit. I really got to get my shit together with meetings. Like I am in calls all day, every day, and I don't know how I got here, and I don't hate it, but I'm like, oh, I have really late nights. But the only hard thing that I am hard about is I don't work publicly on Mondays or Fridays. So those are kind of my days to do content or catch up on client work or whatever. But other than that, I chill. My boyfriend, outside of his, luxury home remodels that he does, he's a gamer. So if I'm in my office at 11 o'clock at night, it doesn't matter in my house, so I kind of just do whatever. I will say, I am very specific. I take a daily siesta every day from 1:30 to 3. That's when I listen to podcasts or I go for a walk. That is a hard I have to do that every day. But other than that, when I work, I
Sarah,
work.
I had that written in our notes. I was
Oh,
going to
do you?
ask you about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, I do that as well. But I thought siesta was like a nap. You're saying it's just like a pause in your work.
I mean, I took inspiration from what, the Spanish culture does. But yeah, for me, like, I went through a period where I wasn't eating lunch, where I wasn't literally getting up from my desk every day. And so, and we just moved into our first house. So I have a backyard. I never had a backyard before. So for me, I'm like, I want to get up and be in the sun and like play with my dogs in the middle of the day because that's my right and I'm allowed to do that. And sometimes it's me laying on like our patio couch and just like chilling in the sun. Like, yeah, sure. But I wish I was a napper, but it's more like, it's just me time, like dedicated private me time. Yeah.
I often think about like as entrepreneurs, and solopreneurs especially, we're taking on all this risk and end up spending all of our time stressing and doing the work and not reaping the benefits and taking the time out for yourself. Kind of seems crazy to do.
Yeah. 100%. I think even too, like over coffee every morning, I sit on Product Hunt and I'm like, ooh, what launched today? Like, what can I play with? And so even my siesta is literally like playing with new tools. Like I can use the time to whatever I want, but if I don't craft it out, I will literally not do it. And I think you time is so important no matter how you're using it. And even like my partner too, like he has an hour when he gets home from work that it is his time. He uses it how he wants. And I think it allows us to kind of come back together and then spend better time together because we had that differentiation. I just happen to do it at lunch because I'm home all day. You know?
Exactly.
But yeah, I think everybody should do it. I think everybody should play and explore. I had somebody ask me not too long ago, like, where do I find the confidence to play with new tools? And I'm like, I don't necessarily think it's confidence. It's just an interest. Like, if you're so hung up on one tool, you don't know what people are building. And I love celebrating people's brains. Like, if I could build a tool or a platform, listen, I would. But I do not have that creative bone in my body, and I am okay with that, But, like, let me play with what else other people are doing.
JR, do you take time out of your day to chill?
Yeah, I do. It depends on the day. It depends on what I look at just kind of what I have going. But I mean, I'm pretty big on like trying to protect my time in the sense of like, I kind of need like a little bit of some mental stuff, whether it's going to the gym or something, going on a walk outside. Like I can't just sit in front of a computer all day. It'll drive me crazy,
Yeah.
Sarah, you've been a great guest. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Make Lemonade.
I'm so glad we connected. Thanks so much for having me, y'all.
James, we should call this episode like the Notion Queen, like just everything about Notion. Like I actually think it's pretty cool. Like I know, again, we had Thomas on here, but I just never really took the time to appreciate Notion. And I think it's pretty cool, the stuff you're doing in this. Like I like your approach. I think and I actually love the stuff you said about if Notion were to fall down tomorrow, I'd still have a business I could operate in. So I think you're thinking about a lot of things the right way. And so that's like something to take away as well. So yeah, thanks for coming on.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Okay, all right.